Hello and welcome to the Inkedibles template tutorial. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to use the EPS file with Illustrator to set up your images, as well as share any tips and tricks I may have for you along the way. So jumping right in, getting started, let me go ahead and show you exactly what I'm looking at here. Now, what we're looking at here is actually a 2.5 frosting sheet template. Each circle is 2.5 inches in diameter. And it doesn't really matter what you're working with, if it's 2-inch diameter, a 1-inch diameter, maybe a some kind of card that's 8 by 6. The tutorial will show you the basics of just having everything set up. Having said that, let me go to show you here what I have on my templates. On my layer palette. On my layer palette, I have two layers. One is a template layer, and the second is an image layer. Now, when you first open this EPS file, you're not going to see this image layer. You will see the template layer, and the template layer is locked. The reason we have it locked is so that you don't manipulate it in any way or delete something or change something and then try to figure out how to get that information back on there. Of course, you can always re-download the file and start it from scratch, but so you won't have to download it again. You can go ahead and just lock that layer. Keep that layer locked and create a new layer where you're going to toss your images into and whatever you're going to work with when you're actually using these images. In case you don't know how to create a new layer, what you can do is you go to the palette, the layers palette. You create the little drop-down menu here. You go to new layer. Get a little window that pops up asking you to name that layer. You go ahead and name the layer. I wouldn't change anything here. You're not creating a new template. You're not trying to lock it. You're not dimming the images. You're just using it for show, preview, and print. So leaving this after you named it, and you see these default checks in here, go ahead and click OK. And you'll notice that the new layer appears here. Now, I don't actually need this layer since I already have my image layer, so I'm going to go ahead and grab it and toss it in the trash. Okay, so the next thing you will need to do here is I'll show you how to line the images in there. But you'll notice that this template here has this gray dark area, and you're wondering, why is this gray dark area here? I mean, is this going to print out in my print? Is this going to use all my ink? And the answer to that question is no. It's actually set up for it not to print, and it's set up for you to just use it as a guide. So this way you know the boundary of your image and any bleed that goes outside that image. Now, what do I mean by bleed? By bleed, I mean anything that goes outside the boundary of whatever template you have, that will go outside of this into the gray area. Now, you have to keep in mind that bleed will print if you have it outside of that. But let me go ahead and explain that in a little bit while I explain to you the importance of having the layers, having the layers set up correctly. Now here, you'll notice that I have two layers, as I mentioned, the template layer and the image layer. Now when I created this layer, I made sure that it was underneath the template layer. The reason I wanted underneath the template layer is because Illustrator works in stacks. So if you have this image layer above, like this, and let's say you have that image already imported, you'll see how that boundary and that template no longer pretty much has any effect, and it's behind your actual image. Now, that's not something you can work with because you're trying to get it within that boundary. So in order for that to prevent that, you want to have this layer underneath. Wow, now that looks much better. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to show you exactly how I set this up here. I'm going to zoom in. Okay, and you'll notice here that, let me go ahead and select it. I can have my image within that boundary, as I mentioned. Now, you notice this dark shadow here. Now that we have the dark shadow, let me explain exactly what that is. That's your image bleeding. Now, of course, this image here has a white background that will not print, but it still shows how much outside of that boundary it is. And if it was in color, any color, red, black, purple, whatever color you have on there, it will print, and it will print as far as beyond this circle here. Now, if that's something you'd like to do, if that's something that you're looking to do, that's great, and that's good that you have that here, and at least now you know that anything within that boundary box, I mean outside of that boundary and in this gray area, is something that's going to print outside the circle. Of course, we're all going to have images that we want no border on, and we want to keep the bleed as far as possible so that it looks great on your pastry, and that's great. Then there you go. Just keep it outside of that. Keep it outside of this boundary here. like this. And all this will bleed outside. I mean, as I mentioned here, if this was in color and it was not white and it was something like one of the main colors, let's say, of your cartridge, either red, I'm sorry, either black, cyan, yellow, or magenta, it would print outside of this border. But since it's white, it's only going to print the edge of this cartridge and the edge of this cartridge. So there you go, your images are now ready for print. Remember to watch the next tutorial, which will show you how to print your templates out of Illustrator.